Welcome aboard another episode of Electric Culture of Safety, a line team that we're forming nationwide all around this country, and folks are coming in, companies are supporting it. There's absolutely no cost. The companies pay for folks to come here. Some folks pay out of their own pocket to come all the way to South Carolina to do this for you all, and they're giving back. And this is an amazing thing we started 3.5 years ago. And now there's over 15,000 members, partners that are doing this to help ensure that our line workers, they come back home safely to their family crew. And you all are part of this, and so welcome aboard. We got a really good guy, my buddy, Mr. Courtney with PowerGrid Services. He's here for his number 4. And highly recommend that you all, if you don't have his other 3 webinars, just contact me, Brent at bierermeters.com, and I will send you them. Also highly recommend that you grab a hold of Mr. Courtney's book here, The 8 Habits of a Highly Effective Safety Culture. I have it. It's a great read, and you need to read it. When he first spoke it 3 years ago, almost to the hour, Mr. Courtney, this was his first topic, and that was 006 right here. My wife asked me, we had dinner last night with my wife, Mr. Rod, here in South Carolina, and my wife's trying to remember who he was because she joined us a couple of times as well. And I said, "You don't remember Brad Pitt, the guy that looked like Brad Pitt?" And she's like, "No one looks like Brad." Well, I hate to tell you guys, Rod does. So we're going to have fun today. He came in 01717 back in March 2023, and the tip of the spear. Definitely get that one as well. And he launched his second book, and he came out 2024, and he spoke on advice from the worst safety professional ever. Don't let that fool you and throw you off course. He's not the worst safety professional. He's one of the very best. So welcome aboard. And real quick, tomorrow I'll be speaking. I don't do this, but maybe once a year or so. But I'll be speaking on the energy wheel reinvented. It's pretty fascinating. And the one ingredient that's missing, I won't tell you what it is today. Tune in tomorrow. And it's been missing for 50 years since the energy wheel's been out. And there's a side too. This is what's been missing. So anyways, jump on board and let's talk with Mr. Rod. Come on.
All right, thank you very much, Brent. Appreciate it. Doing good, buddy. How you doing?
Good, man.
Good.
Enjoyed dinner last night with you.
It was excellent, as always.
Always great talking with you and getting in your head and seeing what's new with you and your family and your career. And I appreciate the updates. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Things are going well.
Yeah, no, I know, man. That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about you, Rod. You're back in high school and you're not sure what's going on, and how did all this come to be?
I think there's always a plan, obviously, because this was definitely not on my radar. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't very good in high school. I was below average, but I did just enough to get by. Mm-hmm. I would much rather play baseball or try to chase girls. I did air quotes there for you. Back when you're 17, 18 years old. I wasn't smart enough, or I wasn't good enough in baseball to get a scholarship to college, and I knew my family couldn't pay for it. So it was either work at the local Texaco station, running a cash register, or go in the military. That was my choice. So a buddy of mine talked me into going in the Army, which I'm glad he did. So in 1989, I went into the United States Army. I spent 10 years total between active and reserves. I was an Army combat medic. During my reserve time, I worked as a correctional officer for a few years. I worked as a police officer for a few years. I actually moved back home to Louisiana after being gone about 10 years with the intention of going to the Trooper Academy. Law enforcement was the direction I was going. Long story short, I wasn't able to get into the academy right away. I had to wait about 6 months, so I needed a job. And a buddy of mine said, "Hey man, go down to United Scaffolding. They're hiring scaffold builders."
Nice.
I went down to apply to be a scaffold builder. Long story short, I ended up in their safety department. A gentleman named Tommy Graham gave me my shot in safety the first time. He saw something, he saw my background and said, let's try this. And so the book you just mentioned, The 8 Habits, a few minutes ago, was actually dedicated to Mr. Tommy.
Awesome.
And he, you know, he
Awesome.
passed away a few years ago, but a great guy. So it was an accident that I ended up in safety. But there's no doubt in my mind, this is what I was put on this earth to do.
Right, absolutely.
I don't work a single day in my life. I love what I do. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's so cool. Now the scaffold part of your life, I've never heard that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
I worked for United Scaffolding for about 5 years. I went over to the Shaw Group and took over their scaffold division for a few years, and then ultimately left there and I went to Kellogg Brown and Root, or KBR, which is when I worked at the Log Cap 3 project. Logistical Civilian Augmentation Program is what that stands for, and that was in Iraq. And I spent 3 years in Iraq as a civilian contractor.
Wow, that's awesome,
Yep.
man. So the 8 Habits, this book here, there's one chapter that I really, really like, and I want you to talk about it just real briefly here.
Sure.
And that chapter is Stop Trying to Fix the Worker.
Yeah.
So just give us a rundown of stop trying to fix the worker. What's that motivation behind that?
That's honestly my favorite chapter in the book. It was my favorite to write. It was my favorite to research. For at least 30 years now. We're going back probably 1990. What we've done in our industry, and all safety industries for that matter, is we have used the information we had, which was based off that Heinrich triangle, right? And we did what was called behavior-based safety for a long time. And I was a behavior-based safety, believer. Right? It was the way things are done. So as you can see that Heinrich triangle there. And basically, and everybody kind of knows this, but the idea behind that whole thing is let's focus on this bottom number, and which is unsafe acts. Let's stop the unsafe acts, and we'll have less and less and less of the things above it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, less fatalities, less significant injuries. I'm not the type of person that just takes something at face value. I want to understand why. And so when the numbers come down, you can go, pull them up and you can see from 1990, the numbers, the overall incident rates for our entire country, all industries, have dropped significantly. But once you research it, you realize, number one, the data that was used to create that triangle, which was done by a gentleman named H.W. Heinrich. He was an insurance investigator for Travelers Insurance back in the 30s. If you really dig into that, you realize and you understand the data that was used is false. There's no way it can be true. I talk about that a lot in the book, and in the second book as well. But the data was false. I don't think he was trying to do something, to hurt anyone. He took what he thought was true. It can't be true. As a matter of fact, the data that was used to create that triangle in the 1930s, you're talking about almost 100 years ago, it has never been duplicated. That data, they're not able to duplicate it. So it's not true. So beside the point, what we've figured out is we have not been able to stop people from dying. We are still killing the same amount of people today as we were 20 years ago,
Right. That's
roughly, right?
That's right.
And if the numbers are true and the incident rates are dropping, but the top of the triangle, the fatalities are not dropping, something's wrong, right? And so that's what I go into in the book and explain why it's wrong and why we need to completely have a paradigm shift and change the way we do safety altogether.
Yeah, I highly recommend you all get Mr. Rod's book here, and keep Rod in your safety environment at your job site, in your organization. So always have Rod in your pocket as far as going to him as one of your flashcards of safety. And definitely get this book. It will challenge your thought process. I guarantee you it'll challenge your thought process. So today, Mr. Rod, he's gonna go over how we can better communicate with each other. This is episode 074, and Mr. Rod, have fun, man.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everybody, and thank you so much to Beer Meters for putting this on for us. Those of us that get to see what's going on behind the curtains of all this, there's a lot of work that goes into putting this thing on. This isn't just, two guys that show up in a field in South Carolina and, you know, chat. There is a lot going on behind the scenes, a lot that goes into putting these on. So thank you so much to Brent and to all the beer meters for helping us do this. But anyway, just real quick, as he said, my name's Rod Courtney. I am the Director of Health and Safety for a company called PowerGrid Services. PowerGrid Services, the parent company, is we're 16 separate companies right now, and so I get the privilege of leading their safety department for all their companies, and it's an honor. I am a board member for the Utility Safety and Operations Leadership Network. If you don't know about the USOLN, go check their website out. We do conferences every year. We certify all CUSP. So if you are or want to be or know someone that wants to be a certified utility safety professional, that's where that process gets started. And the great thing about that certification is they have one side of it that's for safety professionals like me. But if you're in operations, if you're in any type of utility, water, gas, electric, you name it, you can also become a certified utility safety professional and have that designation behind your name. So I have been very, very fortunate over my career to be able to publish a couple of books. The first one was The 8 Habits, which Brent talked about a minute ago. A lot of you have that book, and thank you so much. It's been an Amazon bestseller since the week it came out. It goes up and down the rankings, but it's done very well, and I appreciate that more than you know. It's so humbling to take something that had been up here for so long and to put it on paper. It's hard to explain how vulnerable that makes you feel, you know, but I did it thanks to David McPeak for writing his book first, right? The Hurdles of Leadership. And he mentions me in the book as someone he admires. And I really like that. And I figured, you know what, Brent? If David can write a book, I can write a book, right? No, I'm just kidding, David. So I did. I went ahead and I put it all together. I published it. And I got a lot of flack before the book came out because of the title, because of some of the topics that I bring up in it, because people didn't understand. Now that it's come out and people are starting to understand what it is I'm saying, why I say the things I'm saying, they understand that we do have to start viewing and doing safety differently. So that's The 8 Habits. The second book is titled Advice from the Worst Safety Professional Ever. And I'll be honest, in putting this together, you know, when I wrote the first book, I wrote that book for operations. I wanted operations to understand, number one, what we as safety professionals do. You know, for so long, we were the enforcer, right? We were the compliance enforcer. If they're not wearing hard hats, you go make them wear hard hats, right? That was what we did. They forced us to be safety cops with that mentality. So in the book, I talk about what it is a safety professional should be doing, what it is operations should be doing, and one of the habits is operations own safety, okay? Now, what I mean by that is they own safety compliance, okay? There's no reason that you should wait for the safety professional to make his or her rounds to your job site, and they're the ones that identify all the safety problems and correct them and, you know, all that. That turns us into safety cops. So that's not going to work. So we have a completely different view of safety. Now, back to the second book, Advice from the Worst Safety Professional Ever. There were a lot of working titles for this as I'm going through and writing it. When I wrote that book, it was written for safety people, right? Now, fair enough, the first book, a lot of safety professionals have bought it. And a lot of operations people. There are companies out there that is mandatory reading for their operations and safety people, right? It's laid out in a way that you can start at number one and go through the process, and you can improve or create a safety culture, whatever you need to do. Book 2, though, Advice from the Worst Safety Professional Ever, was written for you, the safety professional. What I didn't want was for you to make the same mistakes I made, right? So if you go right now and you go to LinkedIn, go to any job board out there and pull up a job listing for a safety professional, I promise you somewhere in there, it's going to talk about compliance, right? And you know, ensure compliance of the company and federal safety requirements, blah, blah, something along those lines. And again, they're putting us in charge of compliance, okay? So the reason I wrote this book is to help you, the safety professional, understand that is not our job, okay? There are three things. Well, let me back up. This second book, the advice, is broken into two halves. The first half is called Safety University, YOU University. It's the safety university for you, the safety professional. The second half of the book is called Death, Taxes, and Evolution, which are three things you will never get away from. You will die, you will pay taxes, and everything evolves. Like it or not, you can evolve with it, or you can get left behind. But everything will evolve. So it talks about the history of safety cultures. It talks about where we're at today in safety cultures and where I believe safety cultures are going. Yes, some of the information from the first book has been duplicated in the second book. These are not a continuation of books. They're books, two books written for two different sets of people, one for operations and one for safety. So let's get back to the first part of the book, because we're going to be talking about some of that today. The first part of the book is Safety University. What I believe is there are three skill sets that every safety professional should have. Now, should you know the CFR for your industry? Well, yeah, you know, you need to know what the rules are. But is that something you need to become an expert in? No, because you can look that up all day long. But there are three skills. And again, I'm going to emphasize that many times today. They are skills. Skills are something you have to learn. You're not born with it. You're not just going to become good at it unless you practice it, study it, and actually try to learn how to do it. So one of those is leadership. Now, I talk extensively about leadership all over the country. I do tip of the spear. I do a bunch of different ones based around leadership. So that is one of the three skills to being an excellent safety professional. The other two are communication and influence. If you can be a leader, if you can communicate well, and if you know the skill of influencing other people, you will be successful. So, let's talk about the second two skills. If you want to know more about leadership, like Brent said, there are podcasts out there, there are webinars out there that I've done right here. The IP conference, I've done them many times there. Call me, email me, whatever, and let's get together. I'll either come do one of them for you. I'll do it for you on Teams. I'll send you the presentation. You can do it yourself. It doesn't matter. So let's talk about these two, though. So our objectives today, number one, we're going to learn about communication barriers. These are things that get in our way of communicating. We're going to learn how to communicate effectively. We're going to learn about the power of influence, okay? When you influence someone else to do something the way that you need it to be done, some people will say that's underhanded. You know, oh, you know, you're being slick, you're being sly. You don't do that. So there's a difference, though, in influence and manipulation, all right? And at the end of the day, it's where does it come from within you? Are you doing it for personal reasons, to try and get something from someone for you? That could be manipulation. But a lot of the techniques are the same, but we're influencing people to not necessarily do what we want, but to understand why we want something done. Okay, so then the last one is we're going to learn how to use these skills at your company and in everyday life. So let's talk about the word communication. Communication in the dictionary is something that just says the imparting or interchange of thoughts, opinions, or information by speech, writing, or signs. That's pretty broad. I'm not, at least in this session, I'm not talking about communicating like I'm doing now, where you're standing in front of hundreds or possibly thousands of people and giving a presentation. A lot of people are terrified to stand up in front of people and speak. If they've done studies that show that people are more afraid to speak in public than they are to die, right? Death is number 2 when you ask what are people most afraid of. I'm not talking about that. Yes, as a good safety professional, you'll probably have to stand up in front of people from time to time. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the ability, the skill of communicating. But everyone's heard communication is the key, right? You hear it all the time. I see it on different social media posts all the time. Communication is the key. And I'm not saying it's not. Don't get me wrong. I understand the statement. I understand why we say that. But is communication the key, or is comprehension the key? Okay? So I believe, yes, you have to know how to communicate in order for someone to comprehend. But at the end of the day, if they don't comprehend what you're trying to communicate, it's just a bunch of babble. Okay? So let's remember that comprehension, getting your point across to a certain person or to a certain group of people, is the key. Having them comprehend what you're saying. All right. So let's talk about how we communicate. There's the spoken word, right? This is our number one way of communicating, is speaking. There's verbal and paraverbal. All right. Verbal is just babble, talking. Paraverbal are the things like your tone, your pitch, your volume, and things like that. One of the things I've learned in being able to speak all over the country is a pause, just like I just did, is so powerful. Because as you're talking and your inflections are going up and down, your speech patterns are not just monotone and the same. You're going up and down, back and forth, an ebb and flow of speech patterns. And if you're talking about something and you think it's very important, and you stop just for a second, it grabs everyone's attention. Okay? So that's one of the paraverbals. Nonverbal. Now, I love talking about these nonverbal ways of communicating. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen the different ways to communicate non-verbally, right? So if I'm standing here like this talking to you, that means I'm closed, and I'm closed away from you. If my back's to you, if your eyes are closed, there's just so many different things that if you are, if you're tapping your foot, these are non-verbal cues of what your attitude is that day. So be real careful with that, because you know what? Sometimes we have things going on in our personal life that we don't want to bleed into our professional life. And if you're thinking about the problems with the kids in school and all this, and you're sitting there tapping your foot, the person you're talking to takes that as, this communication process is breaking down. So just be careful with those. We'll talk about it. And then the written communication can also take place. Email, fax. We do still have faxes out there somewhere, but the written word. Now, remember, when you write something down and you send it out, once you send it out, it's out there. Right now, and I've already done it a couple of times just in this one presentation, if you make a mistake, it's real simple to go, oh, I'm sorry, what I meant was, and just keep moving along, and nobody knows one way or another. If you send something out in writing and someone misinterprets something, you don't have the ability to go, oh, I'm sorry, what I meant was, right? So be very careful with written. Things need to be written. I'm not saying they don't, but just read, reread, and reread one more time all the stuff that you put in writing. All right. So what affects communications? Well, our emotions, okay? I just said it. If you have issues going on at home, maybe it's the kids, maybe it's the husband or wife, maybe it's work. The grass needs to be mowed. There's so many different things, but your emotions get involved in everything that you communicate. You have to understand, especially when it's a very important communication, understand this, and sometimes take some time to yourself before the meeting, before the presentation, before whatever, just to kind of center and get emotionally where you need to be. All right. Cultural situations. Now, in the last I don't know, I guess 8 or 10 years, cultural situations have become a major part of what we do, okay? I do not think that we need to be putting down on any culture of any kind, or you know, talking negative about any of them, or not including them. I'm 100% in support of all that, but you've got to understand cultural situations can dictate the message that you send. I was in Mexico many years ago working on a project. It was a power plant, and I was the nighttime safety professional. And we had about, I don't know, 50 people or so on the night shift, millwrights and such, and they were all from Durango, Mexico. And I did have an interpreter. There by the end, I was able to speak enough Spanish where I could actually do the safety meeting in Spanish myself. I was pretty proud of that. So as I'm doing, this is a true story, as I'm doing this safety meeting, one night I'm there, and I was talking about very basic stuff, protective equipment, okay? Guys, you need to wear your PPE, okay? You know, when you're out there and you're not wearing your hard hats and you're not wearing your PPE and your safety glasses and your gloves, and that's what I'm talking about for probably 8 or 10 minutes, the PPE. And after I'm through, because at the time I'm going through a translator still, and he's interpreting everything I'm saying, blah, 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 PPE this, PPE that. And when it was all over, everybody started laughing. And I didn't understand why. What are you laughing at? We're talking about wearing protective equipment. What they heard was PP, not PPE. They heard urination, not protective equipment. Okay, so you know, I'm talking to them through a translator, and they thought it was hilarious because I'm talking about urinating on the job. That's not what I was talking about. I was talking about protective equipment. But again, that cultural situation, okay? The medium used to communicate, again, you know, that's going to affect it. Is it in writing? Is it in is it in person like this? Is it on Teams? Is it on the phone? Whatever. The location. Now, Brent and I joke about the location here because, as it turns out, every time I get to come to do these, it's July. If you don't know about July in South Carolina, let me tell you. You can't breathe. There are these little kamikaze gnats flying all around right now. Actually, this morning is a beautiful day, okay? I know you can't tell from where you're sitting, but it's actually gorgeous out here. There's a little breeze blowing. Go back and watch the other 3 that I did, and you'll see me the whole time doing this and sweating and all that kind of stuff. The weather's crazy here. So sometimes our location can affect the way we communicate. I don't say the first time, one of the very first times that I ever, as a very young safety professional, had to stand up in front of people and talk, was in a meeting in just outside of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I had to get up in front of a lot of, you know, executives of companies. It was multiple companies in the room. And I was nervous, very nervous. And I didn't know, I knew the subject, but I didn't know how I was going to start this because I could tell in the room, it was cold outside and it was warm in the room. That usually means people are, you know, they're nodding off like this, and they were. So I need to do something to get their attention. This location that I'm in is going to make this very difficult to speak to these people and for them to get anything out of it. So those of you that know me know I tend to do a little bit of crazy stuff from time to time, and I did. So I get up and I'm standing behind a podium and I'm looking out. There's probably 60 or 70 people there, some of them wearing suits and ties. And what I do is I say, "Good morning, everybody. My name is Courtney, and I'm an alcoholic." Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, wrong meeting. And what that did was it instantly changed the temperature in the room, right? It woke them up and they're like, "Wait a minute, I wasn't supposed to hear that." They thought it was funny and I had their attention, okay? So where you're at physically, that location absolutely affects your communication. All right, if you take nothing else away from this today, I need you to take this. Communication is a skill, all right? Having the knowledge and the ability to communicate effectively in all situations. It's different. I communicate different when I'm out in the field and I'm out with our linemen, I'm out with our vegetation crews or whatever it is. I communicate differently when I'm there than I do when I'm sitting in an executive board meeting. Or last night when we were having dinner with Brent and his wife Pam. I communicate differently depending on the situation. You have to be able to do that. You have to know your audience and you have to know what's accepted and what's not accepted, okay? There are times, and you have to feel the audience out, all right? There are times that I'm standing in front. Just last week, I was in Fresno, California for PG&E, shout out PG&E, doing a keynote address for them. And it was a room full of linemen. I did three keynotes. And I'm standing up there in front of this big room of linemen, and I noticed that I didn't have their attention there in the very beginning. Sometimes it's okay to change up in the middle of a presentation how you're presenting, okay? So your ability to communicate might change depending on the situation, the actual temperature in the room, right? Is it hot? Is it cold? Are they awake? Are they asleep? Is it early in the morning? So many different things you have to think about when you're communicating. So you've heard this before, the art of communication. Communication is actually mostly listening. Now, the ability to talk is one thing. But the ability to communicate means that you are listening to what people have to say. What you have to understand is this, and this took me a while to actually grasp this idea, but it is true. Whenever you're in the middle of doing whatever it is you're doing, again, you have all your issues in life and in work and everything's going on, your mind's going 100 miles an hour, and someone approaches you. Maybe they come to your office, maybe they approach you in the field, whatever it is, you have to understand if someone is approaching you to talk, whatever they're there to talk to you about is the most important thing in the world to them at the time. It might not mean anything to you at the moment, but understand that it really means something to them. So how many times have you been in a meeting and someone's, sitting behind their desk or maybe in the field like we are now, and the whole time they're doing this on their phone, and they're looking at you and they're, oh, okay, yeah, hold on, just, that doesn't work. They know you're not listening to them, okay? They say listening is 51% of communication. It's probably more than that, to be honest. All that means is you need to listen more than you talk. Big key here. You need to listen to understand, not listen to respond. All right. If you're just listening to someone so that you can answer them real quick or to give them the solution to their problem, you're not going to be an effective communicator. You think you know what they're going to say, and maybe you do. Sit and actually listen to them. And please put down all the other forms of communication when you're talking to them. Sometimes, a lot of times, I'll just take my phone, put it on silent, put it face down, and turn around and have a conversation. Maybe it's on Teams, maybe it's in person, whatever it is. But if you're constantly focusing on other things than that person you're communicating with, you're going to lose them, and you will not get your point across. So the art of listening. And listening is also a learned skill, all right? And listening is not hearing, listening is understanding, okay? So that 2/3 rule of communication, you listen, listening and talking, hearing and speaking equals listen. It says 2/3 here, and I know I said 51% a minute ago, but this is a good rule of thumb. If you listen to understand 2/3 of the time, you will be a much better communicator. You'll understand what this person is trying to communicate to you. Again, you have to understand they may not be as good at communication as you are. So sometimes you may have to read between the lines. Maybe you have to ask questions to clarify. But be sure that you're at least listening more than you're talking. All right, so the do's and don'ts for communication. Face the person and try to make eye contact. I hear this all the time. You know, you need to make eye contact with people when you talk. Now, I don't mean this, right? If you get in their face and you're just staring at them and you're not blinking, you're gonna freak them out. Don't do that. But make eye contact. You know, when I do presentations literally for hundreds of people at a time, I make sure during that presentation to make eye contact with everybody there at least once. At least one time, make just quick eye contact. And again, eye contact doesn't mean staring at them. It just means looking them in the eye. And it's okay to look away for a second. I'm doing it now. But look back, look them in the eye, have your conversation, and let them know that you are listening, okay? Give verbal and nonverbal feedback. If you have a question, if you need them to clarify, like I said, maybe they're not as good at communicating as you are. Maybe you need to ask questions to pull some information out. Absolutely, that's true. The nonverbal side of it, giving feedback to someone nonverbally is important. And I have personally found myself, because especially when I'm sitting down, I like to be comfortable. So I tend to lean back in the chair and put one hand back here and get all relaxed. But the truth is, if I'm in the middle of a Teams meeting and people can see me and I'm leaned back like that, it doesn't appear to them that I'm all that concerned with what they're talking about. So I make it a point for myself to just lean forward a little bit. Now, don't lean forward aggressively, but lean into the camera, lean towards the person that you're speaking to, and make that, you know, time to time eye contact. Silence or ignore your phone or computer screen. I just said that a second ago. I'm not going to go back into it, but please do that. If something else is more important at the time, it's better to say, listen, can we pick up this conversation in an hour, you know, and schedule something, rather than listen to them and be paying attention to something else. So just remember that. All right, know what message you're sending, and with your body language. Understand, like I was just saying about leaning back, crossing your arms, not paying attention. It's a learned skill. If you start paying attention to what you're doing, you'll actually learn some stuff about yourself. Oh, wow, I didn't even realize I was doing that. You know, when my wife and I were dating, she used to tell me all the time that you look upset. Are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. What were you talking about? And then, you know, are you upset? Did I do something? No, baby, everything's fine. I started checking myself in the mirror, literally looking at myself in the mirror to see, because I know how I feel inside, but I had just kind of a sour look on my face. I didn't mean to. So it is something, again, you got to practice this, okay? And know what messages you're sending, because sometimes you don't even realize you're doing it. Don't take notes, okay? Keep them up here. They have, if it's okay to record it. I have a little thing called Plod that I use that you can just press, it records everything and it'll type it out for you. That's fine. But when I say don't take notes, if you're in a meeting with many people and you have to take notes of the meeting, I get that. I'm talking about a one-on-one conversation with someone right now. Don't sit there and take notes with that. That again sends a message. And don't answer your phone or emails. Don't take an aggressive or uninterested posture. Don't interrupt them or stare into the abyss like that. Interrupting. I've noticed this is probably one of, when I'm communicating with other people, this is probably one of the biggest things that I see other people do. And the reason they're doing this is they are not listening to understand. They're listening to respond. And when they do, as soon as there's a slight break in the conversation, for some people, they don't even have to be a break. They'll just run right into you. And they start talking because their brain's going 100 miles an hour. So don't interrupt. Take time to listen to them. Even if you think you already know what they're going to say or why or whatever, listen to them, let them speak to you, and pay attention. All right, other communication factors. The method you're communicating, which we talked about. how much information are you communicating? All right, it's easy to talk about one subject for 5 minutes. Pretty much anybody can do that. If you need to do something like this, like a presentation, or you need to talk to someone about multiple things, you need to get that organized in your head before you start. And the audience that you're speaking to, like I said, I'm going to speak differently to the executives of my company versus the directors versus the linemen, you know, whatever, wherever I'm at in the company or in my personal life. You know, we all have friends that we talk to. They all have different backgrounds. There's different ways that you communicate to different people. Just understand that. All right, tons of different communication methods, person to person, which is the best. I know in this world of technology, emails and text and all that stuff is extremely convenient. And use it, okay? It's a method. But if you have the ability to talk to someone in person, that's big. Especially, we're going to talk about influence in a minute. If you're trying to influence someone, that's a big key. Telephone, email, text, faxes, yeah, we still have those. Radio, public presentations like this, television broadcasts. There's tons of ways to communicate. Now, let's talk about language barriers, psychological barriers, physical barriers, and attitude barriers. All right, so communication barriers. If you're talking to someone that's just not interested, right? You ever been doing a safety meeting and there's that one guy sitting in the back with his sunglasses on, just sitting there kind of staring up like this, just waiting for you to shut up. And those of you that know me know I'll do this in a heartbeat. I will have them stand up. I'm going to make them take their safety glasses off. We're about to have some fun with you. But that is a barrier. Understand though, they have just as many or more problems going on in their life than you do. Okay, so there will be, that barrier will be there. The inability to listen to others. There are people out there, I'm telling you, I was in the military. I know this for a fact. There are people out there that do not have the ability to listen to you. All right, they just don't. Lack of transparency and trust. Communication styles. Conflicts in the workplace. Cultural differences in languages, which we told a story about that a minute ago. But these are all different barriers. Language itself, right? Maybe they speak a different language. Maybe they only understand part of what you're saying. They have little earbuds now that you can put in your ear and put in their ear, and it'll automatically translate your language back and forth to each other. They're about $60. They're great. But there's ways to overcome these barriers. All right. Different jargon. Again, the PPE story was funny. But you know, I talk to linemen all day, and I've been in the electrical industry for a long time. But you linemen out there, y'all know you got some jargon, all right? And some of the things you talk about, I have no earthly idea what you just said until you stop and explain it to me like a 3-year-old, and I'm like, oh yeah, I get that. There's a lot of jargon in the construction world, all right? Emotional barriers and taboos. Taboos are things like cursing. Okay, cursing is not a good idea when you're communicating, especially like this. Now, if it's you and your buddy hanging out fishing or whatever, and you know it slips from whatever, that's what, you know, people do that. But I'm talking about in a professional environment, not a good idea. Lack of attention or interest, difference in perceptions or viewpoints. Now, this is where persuasion is going to come in a minute, influencing others. But the difference in perception and viewpoints is huge. You know, the best way I can think to talk about this is our current political environment in the country. You know, there are people on both sides of the aisle, and some of them will never come to the table, all because they have a different viewpoint, a different perception of something. You know, and it's eating away at the fabric of our democracy. But the fact is, difference in perceptions and viewpoints can be massive when you are trying to communicate to somebody else. Physical disabilities, hearing problems, speech difficulties. I've been in situations before where talking with people that had speech impediments. one of the things that, you definitely don't want to call it out, but sometimes it does make it harder to listen to something when you're not used to the cadence. Physical barriers, literal physical barriers, language differences, expectations and prejudices, and cultural differences. All right, so overcoming barriers, active listening. Active listening, it's a skill that can be acquired and developed with practice, okay? But what it means is you've put everything else aside and you are actively listening to that person. We talked about that a few slides ago, but it's completely giving your attention and concentrating on that person and what it is they're trying to get across to you. Use appropriate language and give feedback. So if at the end of the conversation, this person's come to your office or whatever, they've approached you and they sit down and they're talking to you about whatever it is they want. If at the end of it you go, okay, thanks, and then you turn back around and you go back to your work, you've just sent a message again. Always give feedback, whether it's constructive feedback or whether it's just understanding feedback, saying, you know what, I get it completely. This is what you were saying, right? And you're kind of repeating what it is they said. That is a great communication tool. So, inspiration. When you are in the process of speaking to other people, it is your job to inspire them, okay? Now, this is what's going to tie into the next section of this. When we start talking about inspiring people, when we start talking about how to influence people. But when you communicate, if you can communicate and inspire at the same time, that is huge. But it's something you have to go learn how to do. Okay, real quick video I want to show you guys of how to inspire others. As it turns out, and this is a gentleman named Simon Sinek. He does a few different TED Talks, but this is called, well, I'm going to let him explain it, but basically how we normally communicate is backwards. So watch this quick video.
How do you explain when things don't go as we assume? Or better, how do you explain when others are able to achieve things that seem to defy all of the assumptions? For example, why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in a pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out controlled powered manned flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered manned flight, and the Wright brothers beat them to it? There's something else at play here. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this: we make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You ready to buy a computer from me? All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat screen TVs. They've been making flat screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal and want to be a part of what it is that you do? Again, the goal is not just to sell people who need what you have. The goal is to sell to people who believe what you believe.
Now, what he's saying throughout that whole thing is something, I've read the book based on this. I've watched multiple TED Talks from Simon, and the idea of this is normal communication. When we are trying to communicate something to someone or ask them or try to influence them, which is what we're getting into now, the normal way that we instinctively communicate is we tell them what we want, how we want to get it done, and why. Here is scientific stuff. When we start talking to someone, the truth is they half of their mind is on the other stuff going on in the world that day, right? In their life, okay? So you're only going to get, and I say half, it may be less, but I mean, there may be more, but the fact is you do not have 100% of their attention. I know this, if you go in there and you tell them what you want first, if it's not something that they want also, you're going to lose about half of their attention span. And so when you finish telling them what you want and you tell them now how we're going to go about getting what it is you want, you're going to lose another about half of their attention span. So you're down now to a very small part of their attention span once you finally get to the why. So Simon wrote a book called Start With Why. All right, now this takes practice, and I'm telling you, you're going to have to practice it, okay? Sit down, decide what message you're going to send to someone and the why behind it, and go into this meeting, this conversation, this whatever, and tell them why first. Guys, I'm out here today because I want to make sure that your job is safe and that you get to go home to your family every single day. And then move into the how we're going to accomplish that, right? So it takes practice, but if you can learn to speak that way, if you can learn to communicate that way, much more effective. All right, talk about influence for just a few minutes. How we use our communication skills help us influence others, okay? Now, there are a ton of different influence techniques. There are a ton of books out there on influence. Influence is Your Secret Power is a book. There's hundreds of them. Go find one that literally speaks to you, one that you like. You like the author, or maybe you like listening to that voice, whatever it is, but learn the skill of how to influence someone. It is a skill, mind you. So, power versus influence. So this was a military thing for me, okay? When I was in the military, I was a young private. I didn't have a choice. If someone of a higher rank than me told me to do something, I had to do it, period. That's because of their power, okay? We have that in our industry also. What is the title on your business card? Okay, that holds a lot of weight. I know, okay, and the truth is, I'm no different today than I was when I was a young safety pro. I'm the same guy, you know, or at least I think I am. But because of the title, because of my shiny white hard hat, because of, oh, Rod's coming to the job site today, I understand that that power holds some weight, okay? And sometimes you're going to get answers and you're going to get, you will influence people based off of your power. That is making them do it, okay? That, believe it or not, is easy. Get a big enough title, get enough letters behind your name, people just start doing what what you want them to do. Not for long, because eventually they're going to go back. But if you can influence someone, if you can inspire someone, you're not making them do it, you're making them want to do it. If you can do that, if you can make the people in the field, specifically in our industry of safety, if you can make them want to do things the safe way, you've overcome most of your hurdles right there, okay? Again, this takes practice. The power of influence is massive. The experts say, here's some techniques in dealing with people. And this comes right out of some of the best-selling books to ever be written. Do not criticize, condemn, or complain, right? When you're trying to influence someone else, if you do these things, you will lose them, all right? Don't do that. Give honest and sincere appreciation. Do you understand how far that goes? Just making a phone call or telling someone or sending an email and tell them, great job. You know, I really appreciate the hard work you're putting into this. These things go a long way. And it gives you the ability to influence now or sometimes influence later. All right? Arouse the other person's eager want. Again, these come from a book. It's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. These are some of those habits that Mr. Covey talks about in his book that's been around since the 30s. All right? 6 ways to make people like you. Now, this is the last part of it we're going to talk about today. And a lot of people now, when I talk about this, they talk about, you know what, I really don't care if they like me or not. You know, that's kind of a thing I hear a lot. I really don't care if you like me or not. You got to understand what I'm talking about is influencing someone else, okay? If they don't like you, then they're probably not going to listen to you. So sometimes you're going to have to do things in order to make it so that they like you, all right? Now, become interested in them. The sweetest 2 words to any human ear is their own given name. If you say, hey, Brent, how you doing? Instead of, hey, what's up, bro? Just by saying his name, you caught his attention. If you're standing in a crowd of people, you're giving a safety meeting, maybe you're giving a presentation and you see someone there, right? And you're like, hey, Jeremy, what's going on, man? You just by saying his name, you caught his attention, and that goes a long way. Be interested in that person. Smile. Like I said before, sometimes, you know, you get that droopy face, you don't even mean to. Every once in a while, just kind of show your teeth a little bit, you know? Let them know that you're interested and you're having fun and everything's relaxed. Smile a lot. Remember that a person's name, the sweetest 2 words, I just told you that a second ago. That is the God's honest truth. Say their name and you will be amazed at how far you can go with that. And I'm going to take that one real quick, one step further. If you really want to get into, to be able to get someone's attention, watch this. Now, I know everybody can't see everybody behind the screens right now, but I'm going to talk to Jeremy just for a second, all right? Jeremy is the guy that actually produces all this and puts all this together for us. and does I mean, if you could see all the cables and cameras and stuff happening right here, right now, you know what I'm talking about. All right. So, Jeremy, how you doing, man? You doing all right over there? All right, good deal. Thumbs up. Hey, are you married? Excellent, bro. What's your wife's name? Hillary. Awesome. Do you have any kids? Two girls. Me too, bro. I got 2 girls. I bet mine are older than yours. Yeah, just a tiny bit. They're both out of the house. I got 5 grandkids, bro. Yeah. So what are your daughters' names? Margot. Oh, come on now, Brent. You hear Margot and Joey. How old is Margot? 11. You know, I have a grandson that's 12 years old, right? So what are some of the things that Margot likes to do? Soccer. Now, I'm going to stop right there because I'm making a point here. When I said Jeremy's name, it caught his attention and he liked hearing that, all right? He liked it and it made him feel good. When I started talking about Hillary and Margot, it sent a completely different message to him. His heart rate increased and he didn't even realize it. His breathing increased a little bit and he didn't even realize it, because I'm talking about and saying a name to people, to him, that means more to him than himself. If you can make that connection with someone, it is invaluable, okay? And you can use that technique when you're talking to CEOs or when you're talking to linemen. It works. I promise you it works. Be a good listener. We've talked about that enough, but encourage others to talk more about themselves. When you're meeting with people, let them talk to you. Now, let me back up on that. Sometimes you get 2 people sitting there waiting for the other ones to talk. You might have to engage a little bit just to kind of get the conversation flowing. So I'm not saying just sit there and wait for somebody to talk. There is an ebb and flow to this. Talk in terms of the other person's interest. So, and Brent Jeffries here with Beer Meters is one of the best at this. He doesn't even know it. You know, last night at dinner, myself, Brent, and Pam, his beautiful wife, we all go to dinner, a place here in South Carolina. And what do we talk about the whole time, Brent? Me. You, brother. Me, okay? And about my interest, right? I'm a semi-professional competition shooter. I actually go around the country and I shoot stuff as a hobby. Brent could care less about, you know, me shooting a golf ball at 1,000 yards, to be honest with you. But we had a conversation last night about that, and he showed interest in me. That is huge. Learn how to do that, or practice doing that. Make the other person feel important and do it sincerely, okay? Again, techniques of how to make people like you. When it comes to communication, when it comes to influence, if you can do the things that we talked about today, which is just a very, very little bit of what it actually takes to accomplish these 2 things, but if you can learn these 2 skills, if you can learn how to communicate effectively, how to ensure comprehension of what you're saying, then take that and tie it in with the ability to influence others. Guys, I'm telling you, your effect on our crews in the field, on your personal life even, is going to be astronomical. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure, Brent. Guys, thank you so much.